All right, let's get right into it. Have you ever scrolled through social media and just wondered, how do these people with massive followings actually make money? Like a real business. It seems super complicated, right? Well, today we're going to break down a framework that makes it all click. And the secret? It's almost laughably simple.
Yep, that's a direct quote from the source we're looking at, and it's really the heart of this whole thing. You can forget all those complicated business school textbooks. Turns out, building a business from your audience online, it really just boils down to a few key steps. Steps that anyone can get their head around, and, more importantly, actually do.
So, what's the magic formula? How does it actually work? Well, it turns out pretty much any successful online business really just has three main parts. You master these three things, and you've got yourself a complete working system.
Okay, here they are. First up, you've got marketing. That's just about finding people and grabbing their attention, right? Lead generation. Then there's sales. This is the part where you turn that attention into an actual sale. And finally, number 3, service. That's you delivering the product or the value that you promised. That's literally it. Marketing, sales, service. So let's see how this plays out in the real world, starting with that first piece, the marketing, or as our source calls it, the pregame.
And the pregame, well, it happens exactly where you'd think, on social media. I mean, that's where everybody is, right? This is ground zero for building your network. But, and this is a big but, not all platforms are the same. Not by a long shot. Where you decide to build your audience really, really matters.
So right away, you've got a strategic choice to make. Our source, for example, really hones in on LinkedIn. Why? Because it's packed with serious professionals. You know who you're talking to. Facebook, on the other hand, is, well, it's more general, more social. Both platforms can work, for sure, but their actual value when it comes to business, totally different ballgames.
And here's where we see that difference in black and white. If you look at the advertising data, the average user on LinkedIn is valued at around $20. A Facebook user, just $8. So from a pure business standpoint, the audience on LinkedIn is worth more than double. That's a pretty big deal.
And this is what happens when you focus. By just sticking to one platform, our source was able to build up a network of 20,000 connections. That's huge. But, and here's the twist, those 20,000 followers, that's not a business. Not even close. Not yet anyway.
Okay, this next part. This is probably the single most important idea in this entire breakdown. If you take one thing away, let it be this. We have to understand the huge, massive difference between an audience that you borrow and an audience that you own.
So what's a borrowed audience? Think of it this way. It's all your followers on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, wherever. You're basically just renting space. You don't own that relationship, the platform does. The source gives a perfect example. A LinkedIn newsletter with 1,400 subscribers. Sounds great, right? But LinkedIn's algorithm decides who sees it. If they change the rules, or worse, shut down your account, poof, that audience is gone, vanished.
But an owned audience? Now that's a completely different story. That is a real asset. We're talking about your email list. These are people who have literally said, yes, here's my email, I want to hear from you. You can talk to them anytime you want. There's no algorithm to get in your way. This is the goal. This is the whole point.
This right here, this is what our source calls the dotted line. Everything we've talked about so far, building followers, posting content, that's all just the pregame warm-up. The real business, the actual game, begins the second you start moving people across that line, from a platform you're borrowing to a list that you own.
So think back to that example, 1,400 newsletter followers on LinkedIn. The goal was to get just a small fraction of them to cross that dotted line. The results? 300 direct subscribers on an email list. Now, I know what you're thinking, 300 is way smaller than 1,400, but those 300 people are infinitely more powerful because you now have a direct line to them. So what do you do with this powerful little list? Well, this is where we move from part 1, marketing, to part 2, sales. With that owned list, you can set up an automated machine, a system that works for you 24/7, building trust and turning those subscribers into actual customers, often while you're sleeping. So how does this magic machine work? It's actually pretty simple. A classic, super effective way is a 5-email sequence. Now, listen to this. The first 4 emails are all about pure value. You teach them something, you help them solve a problem, you build up that credibility. You don't ask for a single penny. It's only in that 5th and final email, after you've earned their trust, that you finally make your pitch. And what happens when you do that? Check this out.
From those 300 people on your list, you might get 30 paying customers. That is a 10% conversion rate, and it's all happening automatically in the background. Now we're talking. We have revenue, which brings us to the last piece of this puzzle.
And that final piece is service, the third step in our simple business framework. So what are these 30 new customers actually buying from you? Well, the really cool thing about this whole model is that it's just perfect for digital products.
I mean, you could be selling anything from a $30 ebook to a $100 video course, or maybe even a membership for $20 a month. The best part? These are things you create once, and then you can sell them over and over and over again. That's what makes this whole system, marketing, sales, and service, so incredibly powerful and scalable.
Now, I know we've been talking a lot about LinkedIn as our main example, but it's super important to get this. This is not just a LinkedIn strategy. This is a universal framework for building a business. You can apply to pretty much any platform out there. So it doesn't matter if your platform of choice is YouTube or Instagram or even TikTok or Telegram. The basic game plan is always the same. You start by building your audience there, but the real goal, the main objective, is always to move them across that dotted line. This is it. This is the one move that matters most. Whatever your platform, your number one job is to build a bridge. Maybe it's a free PDF, a webinar, a newsletter sign up, whatever, that gets people to walk from the audience you're just borrowing over to the one you actually own.
And let's be crystal clear about this. This is not optional. It's not some nice-to-have bonus. Building your email list is the fundamental activity. It is the foundation of the entire house. It's what transforms a flimsy, fleeting social media presence into a solid, long-lasting business that you are actually in control of.
So that leaves us with one big question. You've seen the framework now, right? It's simple. You find your audience in the pregame on social media. You move them over to a list that you own. You build trust with them automatically. And then you offer them something valuable. The system works. The only real question left for you is, what platform are you going to master?